Chapter 20, SOS. Caleb felt like he was drifting. Maybe on water. Maybe on air currents. He wasn't sure. Everything was black. He tried to move his hand, nothing. He tried his foot, nothing. Was he alive? Was this the end? He had no idea. The black was so dense that he didn't even know if his eyes were open or closed. He lost consciousness once again. It was a sound that first roused him. Coming from somewhere in front of him was a faint tapping. Then there was a flickering blue light. Blue? What was that supposed to mean? Closer to red or closer to green? He thought back to one of the catchword examples Blaze had reviewed with him. It was a catchword for the colors of the rainbow that was made to look like a name. He ran through it in his mind. Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Blue, next to green. That must be a good thing, he thought. With the glowing light, at least he knew his eyes were open and working. Glancing down, he could see his upper arm but not his hands. The thought of being permanently disfigured from failing to rematerialize flashed through his mind before he realized he was lying in a funny position over top of both his hands. Rolling from side to side, he was happy to see his right hand emerge, followed by his left. At first, he couldn't move them. Then, there was a tingling feeling. He thought. Pins and needles. His awkward crumpled position had led to blood circulation being cut off for various parts of his body. He did an inventory, tensing and releasing muscles from his toes to his head. Things were beginning to feel more normal. He made an effort to shift and found he could get up on his knees. He briefly thought. At least I'm in a good position to pray if needed. He thought back to Blaze's suggestion to start praying if he saw red lights. He sat back on his heels as he continued to hear the tapping. Wait a moment, that's emergency response tapping, he suddenly thought. The tapping I can hear is SOS. Excited now, he scanned the physical controls. He didn't think any of the switches that Zuki showed him would be any use now. Then he saw it. Blaze had referred to a new emergency beacon they were installing in all the shrouds. Flipping the cover off the new switch and flexing his fingers, he began tapping. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The age-old distress signal, SOS. Blaze had explained that when systems were down, all remaining energy would be automatically routed to the emergency beacon. Activating it manually would ensure the clearest possible signal. If Blaze or Van were within range, they would come to assist him. Earlier, Blaze had taken up a position by the large tree. On his way to the ravine, he had grabbed some equipment from their dad's garage. He was reasonably confident that the machine shop ear protectors and welding shield should keep him conscious when the shrouds re-entered. He was correct. Shrouds? No. Shroud. Just one, he thought, as a single shroud materialized in front of him in a blaze of light and a head-splitting burst of intense pressure. Blaze had known immediately that there was something wrong. As he ran forward, Van Adderley was opening and climbing out, a somewhat panicked expression on his face as he looked furtively around. Caleb! They both shouted. Let's see the controls. Tell me what happened? Blaze blurted out. It seemed to be going fine at first. Then, at about the 4-second mark, the energy seemed to boost. I was pretty sure that was the point we lost contact, Van recalled. 4 or 5 seconds. He may have made it. Either that, or he missed the spiral and came off too early. If that happened, he could be 3 or 5 years still in the future, Blaze explained. The other possibility is he made it to this time period but lost the fix on the GPS location and the tree DNA. Let's see if we can reach him with the emergency beacon system. He's familiar with the SOS signal. Let's try that. Blaze began tapping. He continued for more than 10 minutes. There was no response. Nothing. We're going to have to get back in touch with the lab. They are the only ones with the scanning equipment to give us some idea of. Blaze's voice trailed off. They both heard the incoming SOS at the same time, and it was strong. All right. It's a strong signal. He must be in our time. And he doesn't appear far. Blaze exclaimed, scanning the ravine. Of course. My prediction is that he almost made it. If I'm right, he's up by that tree on the hillside. Its crown is actually higher than the top of this tree. It must have attracted his incoming signal when the GPS coordinate and tree DNA settings drifted off. It's sort of like when lightning strikes the highest object. They had both been running hard up the hill as Blaze had explained. Reaching the clearing by the huge tree, they saw the crumpled shroud hung up on some low bushes. Within moments they had the shroud door open and were pulling Caleb out. Reunited, Caleb, Blaze and Van were overjoyed. Success. By working together, and using the clever quick strategies, they had managed to put the future of the world back on track. No pressure. Caleb thought and laughed. Blaze had him lie back down while he did a complete first aid assessment. Other than being shaken up, he appeared fine. You need some rest, Caleb, Blaze said as they gathered the shrouds and extra equipment that Van Adderley had arrived with. And you too, Nav. Or, I suppose I should say, Van. We've all got a big day tomorrow at the school. I've arranged for an early morning conference with Mr. Badgel tomorrow morning. He thinks I'll just be reviewing some parts of Clever Quick with him, especially the K part, knowledge displayed. The plan is to prep all the students before their upcoming exams. We'll be doing that, but also, so much more. He will definitely be surprised. Ha. I remember many of the details. I remember you trusting me to be able to handle many of the memories, so you didn't ghost everything. It was a turning point in my life. It was the start of a very exciting period, Van remarked. In the meantime, Caleb, along with getting rest, you'll need to get caught up by reviewing video A19, Coding for Memory. We'll be watching video A20, Knowledge Displayed, in class tomorrow, if everything goes according to plan. Once home, Caleb realized that despite the fact he felt exhausted, he also had a feeling of elation at having successfully time-traveled. He didn't think he would be sleeping for some time. The reunion with his dad was particularly meaningful. There is really something to the notion of truly appreciating something, or someone, when you almost lose them. As Caleb hugged his dad, he got the sense that the feeling was mutual. Caleb expressed concern about having missed the opportunity to make his presentation. Blaze reassured him that all would be well and that he would have a chance the next day. Good thing, he sighed to himself. He was excited to share his project, especially now since it had some additional information added from sources that he had discovered in Blaze's lab in the future. Using his mapped outline diagram, MOD, he had found it easy to combine the extra material with his earlier research. Just as he was thinking that he might be able to head off to get some sleep, his friends Grace and Asher arrived. They explained that they had been so worried, and then so happy when they heard he was fine, that they just had to come over to welcome him home. Caleb spent the next hour relating his adventures in the future, along with sharing various messages he had brought back from their older selves, Kara and Cher. It was with a high level of excitement that the group assembled outside the main entrance to the school the following morning. Van and I have been chatting, Blaze reported, and we've decided we should deal with the K part of Quick first, since that's happening this morning. After that, we'll play it as it goes. Ideally, we'd like to spring the future info on Mr. Badgel before we talk about the review of Clever Quick. It may make the whole thing a little more relevant. They were all excited to see Mr. Badgel's reaction to the news. The meeting started with Blaze introducing Mr. Adderley to Mr. Badgel. This is the Mr. Van Adderley I mentioned to you when we set up the meeting, Blaze offered. He's from the local school board office, although he also connects with other boards across the country and internationally. He's been in touch with us at the university and is very interested in learning more about the Clever Quick system. Mr. Adderley, Mr. Badgel said, extending his hand. Welcome. Thank you. Call me Van, please, Mr. Adderley replied. And thanks for allowing us to have these 3 students at our meeting today. I always like to get student perspectives on any new programs we try in schools. As do I, Mr. Badgel noted. And, just to be clear, the agenda for today's meeting begins with setting up the morning presentation of the K from Quick knowledge displayed. It's timely since the students will be reviewing work this week from the last term, leading up to some fairly important tests and evaluation activities. We need to also discuss the full review of Clever Quick that we will want to do with the students this afternoon. We haven't really given all the topics the full treatment. It's been a bit of a rush, but we've tried to hit the highlights. Yes, that, along with a related matter that we wanted to add, Blaze interjected. We'd like to have some discussion with you about your continuing to promote these concepts as we proceed into the future. This led to suppressed giggles on the part of Caleb, Grace, and Asher. Mr. Badgel took note, and you could see his eyebrows raise. That's a full agenda, Mr. Badgel cautioned. We better get started. My lunch hour is open today, so we can continue then with any topics we don't deal with this morning. Blaze took the lead, reviewing the K knowledge displayed presentation that he would be going over with the students. I'm curious about something, Van asked. Just how much of the Clever Quick program have your students participated in this year? As Mr. Badgel was about to respond, there was a knock at the door. Looking up, he could see the principal, Ms. Lim, beckoning to him through the window. She looked concerned about something. Mr. Badgel apologized and assured everyone that he would be back momentarily. They began talking in hushed tones. Those of us sitting around the table could tell it was something important. Mr. Badgel's face was stern as he rejoined us. I'm afraid that we'll have to continue this meeting at noon, he began. There's something critical that I have to attend to immediately. My apologies. With that comment, he was out the door and hurrying in the direction of the office. Well, so much for the big reveal where my younger self learns of the future. Van sighed. Interesting. If I recall correctly, there was no emergency last time, 8 years ago, when I was on the other side of the table. I recall learning of the future in the morning meeting. Things are different. Strange. It's interesting, but not completely unusual. You'll find that there are changes between visits. Most of them are small, but some can be significant, Blaze began. I don't remember the emergency, either, when I was here as you, Caleb, 8 years ago. As we loop back through time, we notice certain unexpected changes. It's no wonder that alterations would occur as we introduce some of our life and planet-saving measures. Also, don't forget that this whole meeting with Van and Nav is happening on a different day than it did last time. We have Suki to thank for that. The more we future loop, the more we notice the incremental changes. Aside from the day adjustment, it might also relate to one of the changes that we from the future have introduced. This, directly or indirectly, could have led to this morning's emergency. The morning in class went, more or less, according to plan. Blaze did the review of K knowledge displayed along with Mr. Badgel, emphasizing how important it was to not only remember information from learnings, but also to know how to apply that information. They talked about regular tests and the tips involved in how to do your best. But they also emphasized that there would be many other incidences where they would be called upon to display their knowledge. This would involve other evaluation activities in class as well as real-life situations they may find themselves in. You may even find yourselves in an emergency and need to remember something to be able to survive, Blaze emphasized, glancing over to Caleb, who was nodding. Your life and other important events could be at stake. The discussion had concluded with Mr. Badgel showing the class video A20. Caleb also finally got a chance to give his presentation. He had launched into his talk Where off Earth could we live? With Grace and Asher sitting back, confident they already knew what was to come. They were wrong. Caleb had refocused his presentation with the help of the resources from Blaze's office. Caleb chose to focus his presentation now on how humans will be able to travel to other star systems. As he went on about black holes, quasars, wormholes, portals and space travel, he had everyone moving to the edge of their seats, leaning forward. This included Mr. Badgel. With the help of PowerPoint slides, some video clips he had found, sketches on the whiteboard, and some follow-along activities for the students, he had explained everything so clearly that he made it possible for all the students to very obviously understand. That was amazing. And totally well done, Caleb. You've just demonstrated how the Passion in Passion project can truly lead to excellence. You know, all this makes so much sense, but this is an area of interest to me, and I have to admit, at least half of this is totally new to me. Do you mind me asking what sources you used? Mr. Badgel gave the students a few minutes to review their notes while he perused several of Caleb's books. Amazing, this all checks out. These are all very credible names in the science of space research. Well done for locating them. Mr. Badgel had remarked, depositing the books back on Caleb's desk, along with an evaluation sheet that was filled with detailed notes. Caleb's eyes immediately fell to the bottom line. It read outstanding. 100%. For a very brief moment, Caleb thought back to the point not that long ago, before Blaze had made his appearance. So much had changed and he felt so much better about his learning. If Clever Quick can do this for me, it can help anyone who wants to improve, he mused to himself. The morning ended with some comments from students about the visitor at the back of the class. One said, "That man from the board office sure looks a lot like you, Mr. Badgel. Is he your brother, or cousin?" Another added, "You know, Mr. Badgel, he looks like you when you let your beard grow that time." A third commented, "Did anyone else notice that the letters in Mr. Van Adderley's name can be rearranged to make Mr. Nav Badgel? Are you all playing some kind of joke on us?" With that comment, Mr. Badgel looked at the left side of the whiteboard, where he had printed Mr. Adderley's name for the class. Then he looked across to the right corner of the whiteboard where his name was, before glancing once more at Mr. Adderley's name. Mouth open, he turned to stare at Mr. Adderley. Between them, there was a whole class of students looking first at Mr. Adderley, then at Mr. Badgel, then back again to Mr. Adderley, and so on. For a few moments, it seemed like they were in the audience at a tennis final, with all faces flipping back and forth, following the bouncing ball. That is, all faces except those belonging to 3 of the students, who were grinning, hunched down in their seats.